It's just a small family favor. My mom said, yeah, right. Turns out, their favor was hijacking my whole damn life savings. This was 3 weeks ago, but honestly, it feels like I've been walking around in this nightmare for months. It started on a regular Thursday night. I was in my apartment, half eating a frozen burrito, refreshing my bank app for the third time because I'm obsessive like that. But something felt off. My balance looked wrong. Like zero wrong. I remember blinking hard, refreshing again like that would magically fix anything. Still zero? Still nothing. My stomach dropped. Now, context. I've been squirreling away money for over a decade, living in a crap apartment, skipping vacations, buying the off-brand cereal. I don't splurge. I plan, I build, and I had built a damn good savings account like 6 figures good. Specifically, $180,000. That was my future, my house, my freedom, maybe even early retirement if I played it smart. Gone. Every cent. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone as I called the bank. Some poor customer service rep picked up cheery classical music still playing in the background and asked me how she could help. I could barely get the words out. There's nothing in my account. It should be there. $180,000. It's all gone. Clickety-click went her keyboard, then silence. I see a transfer to Parker Family Ventures LLC, she said finally. It was processed 3 days ago. Authorized using your online credentials. Cue the internal screaming, I don't have any company like that. I didn't authorize anything. But guess who does have a venture? My dad and my brother, Matt. They've been blabbing about some investment initiative for months, but never gave me straight answers. So I start putting it together. My mind's racing, heart pounding. The name on the transfer matches my dad's side project. It was sent from my IP. My security questions were used. WTF. And then it hit me, the laptop. 3 weeks ago, at my parents' house. Dad asked to check the football scores on it while I was helping Mom cook. At the time, I didn't think twice. He's always borrowing stuff. But that night, my laptop felt weird, slower, glitchy. I chalked it up to an old battery. Should have trusted my gut. I ran Task Manager and found some file buried deep in system processes, something I didn't recognize. I'm not a tech wizard, but I know what spyware looks like. Keylogger, recording everything: logins, passwords, account numbers. Holy shit. And here's where it all fell into place, like a Jenga tower on fire. My family planted tracking software on my laptop during a casual Sunday dinner so they could siphon my life savings. I sat in silence for what felt like hours. Eventually, I got a text from Matt. Hey sis, thanks for all the help. You're seriously a lifesaver. Dad says we owe you big time. I swear, I almost threw my phone across the room. My hands were trembling again, but not from shock this time, from rage, burning, blinding rage. I didn't even cry. I couldn't. It was like my tear ducts froze in disbelief. And then my mom calls. Weekly check-in, right on schedule, like everything's fine. I answered, kept my voice cool. Hi, sweetheart, she chirped. How's my favorite CPA? I'm not even a CPA, but sure. We talked about curtains, about Matt's startup finally taking off, about how we should all do a family trip this summer. Maybe Greece. I played along, threw in the occasional, oh nice, and waited. Then I dropped the bait. So how's Dad's retirement portfolio? He mentioned he was making some changes. She paused. Oh, it's fine. Dear, nothing serious. Right. Funny how she suddenly got vague. When I hung up, I called Maya, my old college roommate who now works in cybersecurity. Thank God. Maya, I said, I need your help. It's my parents. I think they stole from me. I gave her the quick version: the missing money, the spyware, the shady LLC name. She didn't even hesitate. Do not confront them yet, she said, voice firm. Let me help you gather proof first. If this is what I think it is, you're gonna need more than just a phone call and a gut feeling. And I broke. Right there, right then. They took everything, I whispered. But Maya, bless her, shot back without missing a beat. No, they think they did. You moved most of it. Remember? She was right. I'd felt something was off for a while now. Their sudden interest in my money, weird questions about where I bank, what security I used. I wasn't stupid. So, 2 months ago, I moved most of my actual money into a hidden secondary account at another bank, left the decoy account full enough to look legit. The $180K wasn't actually what they got. It was what I wanted them to think they got. They stole fake savings. I still had the real deal. Honestly, that moment when I logged into the backup account and saw the full balance untouched, I felt something crack inside me. Not sadness, not relief, power, control. They tried to screw me, but I'd been one step ahead. They raised me to be smart with money. I told Maya, half laughing, half trembling. Well, guess what I was? That was the night the revenge plan was born. The next morning, I'm at Maya's place by 9 a.m. sharp, clutching my laptop like it's a crime scene. Which, honestly, it kinda is. Her apartment looks like a hacker's dream. 3 curved monitors, a mechanical keyboard that clicks like a typewriter on steroids, LED lights glowing softly under the desk. I half expected her to be in pajamas, but she's already in war mode, hair in a bun, espresso in hand, eyes sharp. You brought the laptop, she asked. I nodded. And some snacks? Fuel for whatever the hell we're about to do? Maya smirked. Let's ruin their week. God, I love her. She booted up my system and got to work like it was second nature. Within minutes, she found the spyware files buried in some obscure folder path I'd never even seen before. This is not amateur crap, she muttered. Somebody paid good money for this. How long's it been on there? At least 6 weeks, maybe more. My jaw clenched. 6 weeks of them spying on me, collecting my passwords, watching every click I made online, every single transfer, every login. That Sunday dinner when Dad borrowed my laptop, that was the install moment, and I just let it happen. Maya kept digging, her fingers flying. She found a folder labeled with my name. Inside passwords, bank logins, tax records, screenshots of security questions, everything. I felt sick. This is identity theft, she said flatly. They weren't just stealing money, they were building a blueprint of your whole damn life. That hit different, like, not just a betrayal of trust, but a full-scale invasion. Can you trace it, I asked? Like, where the info went? She gave me a grim smile. Already did. She opened another tab, and boom, there it was. All my stolen data had been funneled into an email account under Parker Ventures Inc., a domain my dad owned, the same one tied to that fake LLC. I just sat there, staring at the screen like it was bleeding. My dad, the man who taught me how to budget when I was 12, who used to say crap like, money is trust in paper form. I believed him. I really did. You okay, Maya asked. Jaith? I laughed. A bitter, too loud laugh. I was raised by con artists in matching sweaters. Do you want me to stop? No, I said, I want to burn it down. She didn't flinch, just nodded and kept typing. A few hours later, she pulled up another tab. Okay, this part's gonna suck. She found their texts from Dad, from Matt, from my own mom. Turns out they had a whole family group chat I wasn't even in because of course they did. And in that chat were things like, Elena won't notice. She's too busy counting pennies. Matt, Oct, third. She owes us this much. We gave her everything. Dad, Oct, fourth. Just make sure she doesn't find out until it's too late. Mom, Oct, fifth. Reading those felt like being slapped. Repeatedly. I kept scrolling even though I wanted to throw up. They really think I'm just some walking ATM, I said, like I don't exist outside of being useful. Maya's jaw tightened. That's abuse, financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and now, straight up fraud. The rage wasn't even hot anymore. It was ice cold, focused. I felt like I'd swallowed steel. So what now, I asked. We gather evidence, all of it, build a full timeline. Then, we take it to someone who knows how to use it. Like who? Maya tapped her phone. I've got a guy, used to work for the FBI, Financial Crimes Division. He's semi-retired now, consults on the side, name's Benjamin. Think he'd help me? He owes me a favor, and you've got a hell of a case. Benjamin showed up that afternoon. Gray hair, ex-military vibe, wore a button-up shirt like it was armor. Quiet, observant, shook my hand like he was measuring my grip for intel. Show me everything, he said. So we did. Maya walked him through the spyware. The data trail, the texts, the bank transfers. He didn't say much, just took notes on a yellow legal pad like he was drafting a war plan. When it was over, he looked at me, dead serious. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a one-time con. Your family's running a pattern, probably has for years. What do you mean? The setup is too clean. The use of your credentials, the timing of the transfers, the shell company, I've seen this before. Usually it's aging parents being exploited by their adult kids, but this your situation, it's reversed. You're the responsible one, the resource, the golden goose. He leaned forward, and they've been bleeding you dry. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my face from cracking. Do not confront them, he said. Not yet. When you do, it needs to be strategic, recorded, with airtight evidence. No wiggle room. And then what? Then we bring it to the authorities, not just to press charges, but to make sure they don't do this to anyone else. It felt like hearing the word revenge with a badge. I nodded. Okay. That night, back at my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the text Matt sent. The casual thanks for all your support, like he hadn't just tried to ruin my future. I opened my backup account again, just to see the money sitting there, still untouched, still mine. It gave me clarity. They thought they could screw me over and I'd just cry about it in my sad little apartment. But no, I was going to make this hurt. Not just because they deserved it, but because I needed to show myself I wasn't powerless. They tried to take everything from me. Now I'd take everything back plus interest. 2 days later, I was sitting in Maya's apartment again, this time not trembling, not crying, but plotting. Like, for real plotting. You ever feel that flip, where grief turns into strategy? That was me. Benjamin had laid out a full plan. You confront them only once. One meeting, one shot, and you record everything. You bait them into confirming it in their own words. So basically, I said, we get them to hang themselves with their own damn rope. He nodded. Exactly. But you stay calm, no outbursts, no giving away what you know too early. Maya pulled up a voice recording app she'd modified to sync instantly with a cloud backup. One button. That's all it took. She even disguised it as a calculator. We were going full spy movie. The next morning, I sent the message to the family group chat. We need to talk. I'll be at the house Sunday, noon. It was like poking a hornet's nest. Dad, glad to hear it. We're all worried. Let's clear the air. Mom, sweetheart, yes, let's be a family again. Matt, great. Dad says he can explain everything. Just keep an open mind. Right. Open mind. So they could fill it with more lies. No thanks. Benjamin helped me rehearse responses to whatever excuses they'd throw at me. Maya went through my laptop again, documenting timestamps. By Friday, we had a dossier thicker than my last tax return. Saturday night, I barely slept. I laid out my charcoal blazer, the one I wore for job interviews. Not because I wanted to impress them. No, I wanted to look unshakable. On Sunday, I pulled into their driveway 10 minutes early. Matt's brand new Tesla sat gleaming like a damn trophy. I laughed bitterly. Paid with fraud, I muttered. Congrats on the stolen future. I stood at their front door, checked the hidden mic in my purse, and rang the bell. The door opened right away. Of course it did. They'd been waiting. Ellie, Mom gushed, going for a hug. I stepped back. Let's just talk. Her smile faltered for half a second before she plastered it back on. Of course, of course. Dad was already in his armchair. Matt leaned against the kitchen door, arms folded like some smirking sidekick. So glad you're here, Dad said, gesturing to the sofa like this was some friendly catch-up. There's been some confusion. I sat, keeping my posture stiff. Yeah, about the $180K confusion. Matt winced. Mom jumped in. It's not what you think. It's a family investment opportunity. We were going to surprise you by stealing my money. Dad held up a hand. No one stole anything. We used your login because you've always been responsible. We trusted you wouldn't react emotionally. Oh, screw that, I snapped. You put spyware on my laptop. That's not trust, that's surveillance. The mask slipped from Dad's face for just a second. Then came the calm voice. You've always had what we didn't. We're a family. Sometimes sacrifices need to be made. Matt added, and you weren't even using it. You're still living in that shoebox apartment. I was saving it for a future you clearly didn't think I deserved. Mom clasped her hands. Trying the guilt trip card? We gave you everything. Ellie, you wouldn't have that money if not for us. That's rich, I said. I earned every damn cent. There was a pause. The air felt thick. Dad sighed. Look, it's done. The money's moved. We can't change that, but we can move forward, together. I hit the button on my phone. Cool, I said, because everything you just said recorded. Mom gasped. Matt's jaw dropped. Dad actually laughed. No one's going to believe you over your family. We're respected. You're just what I said, an accountant who happens to have receipts. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the coffee table. Timeline of the spyware, IP logs, transfer records, group texts. Want me to read them out loud? That shut them up fast. Then I dropped the bomb. Also, that $180K. Not real. The account you drained was fake. I moved the real money months ago. You stole a decoy. Matt paled. Wait, what? Yep, I said. You stole your own damn lie. Just then, Benjamin stepped through the front door like a silver-haired avenging angel. Is everything all right here? Dad jumped up. Who the hell are you? Former FBI, he said. And you're about to be very familiar with some agents I still know. The panic hit them in waves. Mom turned on Dad. You said she'd never find out. Matt started pacing. This isn't happening. This can't. Dad tried one last power play. We can fix this. Ellie, name your price. I stood. Justice. And with that, I walked out. I didn't look back. Not even once. The next 48 hours were pure chaos. By Monday morning, Benjamin had already filed a preliminary report. Maya helped compile all our digital evidence into a secure shared drive. I sat at my desk, sipping cold coffee, watching emails fly back and forth with phrases like fraudulent misappropriation, cybercrime escalation, and identity abuse within immediate family. It felt surreal. Like watching your childhood home burn down, and all you can think is, did I turn off the stove? Tuesday afternoon, I had my first formal interview with a federal agent. Sarah Donovan, early 40s, suit tailored like she walked off a legal drama set, zero small talk. She listened, took notes, interrupted only to clarify something with a surgical question. "You compartmentalize well," she said halfway through. "Only way to stay sane," I replied. She glanced over my files, eyes narrowing at one of the group chat screenshots. "Your father called this a family obligation." "Yep, like I'm a living trust fund." Her pen paused. "That tracks with patterns we've seen. We've had cases where parents set up entire fake companies just to leech off their kids' credit." "Welcome to the Parkers," I said, "where guilt is currency." The next few weeks were brutal. The FBI froze every Parker-related account within a 72-hour window. Jason's startup gone, Mom's joint savings with Dad investigated, Dad's investments through shell companies flagged. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages, missed calls, even voicemails from my old godmother, sobbing about family breaking apart and what will the neighbors think. Neighbors. As if that mattered now. But I didn't respond. Not once. Not to Dad's pathetic "we need to talk," not to Mom's guilt-ridden "I can't sleep knowing you're hurting," and definitely not to Matt's dumbass text that just said, "Hey, can we just pretend this didn't happen?" The hell we can. Maya installed a new security system in my apartment. Smart locks, keypad access, biometric authentication. My therapist joked I turned my apartment into a panic room. Damn right I did. For the first time in my life, I needed walls I could trust. The real shift came when Agent Donovan called me into a follow-up meeting. She laid down a file, thicker now, full of bank records and flagged transactions. "Elena," she said, tone steady but serious, "your father's financial trail links to 7 other relatives." My brain stuttered. "What?" "We believe he's done this before. Different methods. Same result, stealing from within." "So, my family has a fraud ring." She didn't flinch. "It fits. Your cousin in Austin lost her down payment mysteriously last year. An aunt in Arizona suspicious loan activity tied to Parker LLC, and 2 extended family members have disputed credit card charges they never understood." I sat there, stunned. This wasn't just betrayal, it was systemic. And I was the one who finally pulled the plug. "We need you to prepare a victim impact statement," Donovan added. "Got it," I nodded. And just like that, I had homework and revenge. Meanwhile, Benjamin was in full strategy mode. He looped in a financial crime consultant and even flagged potential civil suits against Dad. "The criminal case is solid," he said, "but civil penalties will make sure they never bounce back financially." I won't lie, that felt good. It wasn't about being cruel. It was about justice, and making damn sure they'd never do this to anyone else again. Around week 4, something unexpected happened. Matt showed up at my building. I spotted him through the camera feed. Hoodie, backpack, no smugness, just nerves. I buzzed him in but kept the door chain latched. "You got 60 seconds. I didn't know the full plan. He said fast, "I thought Dad had your permission." "Seriously," I deadpanned. "You thought I willingly handed over $180K because what, family vibes?" He looked miserable. I was stupid. I get that now. "And you only showed up because your money got frozen, right?" He didn't answer. "Thought so." I was about to shut the door when he blurted, "I sold the Tesla." I paused. "No." "What?" "I sold it. Put the money aside. If there's a way to fix some of this, I want in." I studied him. No lies in his eyes, just exhaustion. "You really that broke?" I asked. Broke and jobless, no startup, no family name, just me. I open the door fully. Then start by leaving, and not screwing anyone else over again. He nodded. Fair. He left quietly. No drama, just shame, and somehow, that hit harder than if he'd yelled. A week later, I sat with Maya on her balcony, wind in our hair, laptops closed, wine glasses half full. You okay? She asked. Define okay. You feel done? No, I said, staring into the city lights. I feel cleaner, like I scrubbed out a disease that was living in my blood. She raised her glass, to disinfection. I clinked hers, to burning down the whole damn rot. And in that moment, I finally realized I hadn't just broken free. I'd extracted myself. Surgically, completely. And now it was time to rebuild. 3 months later, I moved. Nothing dramatic, just upgraded from the old apartment with the squeaky floors and beige sadness to a sunlit 2-bedroom that smelled like fresh paint and actual possibility. It wasn't just about space. It was about starting fresh in a place that didn't hold memories of breakdowns or stolen peace. Maya helped me unpack. She arranged the books while I struggled with the IKEA bed frame and cursed the tiny Allen wrench into oblivion. Honestly, I muttered, I survived identity theft, but this piece of crap is gonna break me. She snorted. At least this one won't gaslight you while doing it. Fair point, us. I was different now. People didn't see it at first glance. Same hair, shorter now, less maintenance, same eyes, same old budget-conscious wardrobe, but inside, a whole new wiring. I didn't flinch at unknown numbers calling. I didn't second-guess locking my bank account tighter than Fort Knox. And I couldn't lie to myself about family anymore. The trial date was coming up. Benjamin prepped me like a coach before a big game. You stay factual, stay calm, let the evidence speak. Even when they look pathetic in court, I asked, because you know they will. He gave me that soft, fatherly smile, the kind that didn't make me want to hurl a chair. You're not here to destroy them, Elena. You're here to protect yourself and whoever might have been next. That landed. I spent the night before trial watching old videos on my laptop, not of family, but of me, college graduation, the time I gave a budgeting seminar to teens and they actually clapped. That one Christmas, I cooked everything from scratch and nailed it. Mom had posted that one, my daughter, the little overachiever. She captioned it. Ironic, huh? But I didn't feel sad watching it. I felt anchored, reminded that I existed before their betrayal, and I'd exist long after. The courtroom was colder than expected. They always are. Mom looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit. Dad, still trying to wear authority like cologne, failed hard. Matt wasn't there. Said he couldn't face it. Whatever. I gave my victim impact statement without crying. Without pausing, I spoke of lost trust, violated autonomy, and how identity theft hits different when it comes from people who once taught you to tie your shoes. The judge listened, really listened, and when she sentenced them 7 years for Dad, 5 for Mom, I felt, not relief exactly, but clarity. They were guilty. And now, that guilt had weight. Outside the courthouse, the sun was blinding. Maya tossed her arms around me. Benjamin nodded like a proud coach. Then, of course, Jason showed up. He was wearing a real suit this time, from Target, probably, but it fit. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said, voice low, just hoping maybe one day we can talk. I didn't answer right away. I watched a leaf spin down from a tree behind him. Then I nodded, just once. That was all he got, for now. 2 weeks later, I was back in my new apartment, standing in the middle of my living room, realizing it finally felt like home. I'd painted one wall a ridiculous shade of teal, bought real art from a street vendor instead of printing Pinterest stuff, hung up a corkboard labeled wins and started pinning every small victory. New promotion letter. First paycheck from my side gig, consulting on cyber fraud cases, thank you notes from a women's shelter I did a finance talk for. Every pin was a reminder, you're not what they did to you. One afternoon, I visited Mrs. Finch, the neighbor who used to watch our cat when we traveled. She hugged me too long and said, I always knew you were the smart one. We sat on her porch. She served lemonade with way too much sugar. You know, she said, your dad once told me he wished you smiled more. I laughed. That tracks. She leaned forward. You're smiling now. Later that night, I journaled for the first time in months. Entry. I thought revenge would feel like fireworks, but it feels more like clean sheets, like silence without dread, like owning your own time again. Maybe that's better. I wasn't done healing, not even close. But I wasn't broken anymore. And that felt better than vengeance ever could. 6 months. That's how long it's been since the verdict. Since orange jumpsuits and cold benches. Since I stood in court and watched my parents' eyes dodge mine like I was some stranger, some enemy. Now it's just life again. The kind where you check your bank balance without dread, where you make eggs in the morning and they don't taste like regret, where no one's secretly logging your keystrokes or plotting a silent mugging of your identity. Last weekend, I got an email. Congratulations on your acceptance to the Masters in Forensic Accounting program. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Me. After everything, I accepted, of course, not just because I love the spreadsheets and the logic and the puzzle of it all, but because I now know how vital it is to have people like me in this system. People who know how betrayal hides behind family photos and polite smiles. Now I teach workshops on financial boundaries. I speak to high schoolers about credit, to seniors about spotting manipulation. I tell them what no one told me. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they get a key to your life. One woman cried after my talk, said her son had emptied her checking account by accident 3 times. I thought I was being a bad mother. She whispered, "No," I said gently. "You were being too good." That's what I do now. I live in a walk-up in San Antonio. Not fancy, but it's mine. 2 bedrooms, 1 for sleep, 1 for reclaiming. That second room has become my office, my peace zone, my wall of boundaries and progress. I even framed my degree. Something my dad once said was just paper. It's paper that saved me. Jason and I, we talk. Not a lot, but sometimes. He's working for a landscaping crew now, busting his ass under the Texas sun, and for once, he doesn't complain. He texted last week. Still sober, still broke, but getting better. I sent back. Still watching, still waiting, proud of the effort. Some doors stay open a crack. That one, we'll see. Maya and I have a Friday night ritual now, tacos, beer, and revenge movie night, the ironic kind. Last week it was Gone Girl. She paused during the ending and said, "You know, you're the less murdery version." I'll take that as a compliment. I grinned. We laugh a lot now, not because things are perfect, but because we made it out, because we didn't stay victims. Sometimes I still get letters from Mom. Filtered through the prison system, scentless envelopes, carefully worded paragraphs. Apologies, explanations, excuses dressed as insight. I read them. I don't always reply. Last month, she wrote, "I hope you can forgive me one day." And for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar twist of anger. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't for them, it's for me, for space in my head that I refuse to rent to ghosts anymore. I've got too much to build. A few weeks ago, I got a call from Benjamin. He wanted to know if I'd consider joining his firm part-time, helping other victims navigate post-fraud chaos. They could use your insight, he said. You've lived it. I said yes. Of course I did. It felt like full circle, like the girl who once stared at zeros in her bank account now gets to help someone else say, "Not today." Sometimes I still dream about that Sunday dinner, the one where it all started, Dad checking sports scores on my laptop, Jason talking too fast, Mom's hand on my shoulder, distracting, familiar. Now, in the dream, I close the laptop, I stand up, I walk away before they can finish the act. It's always peaceful. That's how I know it's a dream. But when I wake up, it's not grief that greets me, it's gratitude. Because I survived. And not just that I evolved. I'm not the quiet, agreeable Elena they raised. I'm not a walking ATM. I'm not the responsible one holding up a sinking ship. I'm something new, something sharper, something free. Today, I stood in front of a new group, 20 people learning how to spot emotional coercion in financial relationships. I looked around the room and said, "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to remind you that awareness is power. Silence is where this stuff thrives. And you don't owe anyone your silence." At the end, one woman hugged me, another shook my hand with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "I thought I was alone." God, that hits every time. I went home, made myself dinner, and poured a glass of wine. Sat on the balcony, let the city noise hum in the background like a lullaby. And I thought, this is what it feels like. To be safe. To be your own person. To walk away from everything broken and build something quietly, defiantly whole. It doesn't end with fireworks. It ends with peace. And maybe, just maybe, that's the loudest revenge of all. Story 2. You probably know someone like me. Maybe you are someone like me. The one who shows up early, remembers birthdays, quietly cleans up after the party. The one who doesn't cause waves. The one they call dependable right before they forget you exist. My name is Thaddeus, but only people from work call me that. Everyone else just says Tad, not that they say my name very often. I'm 29, quiet, responsible. The background character in a family that only sees one spotlight. That spotlight is Penelope, Penny to everyone but Mom, who insists on using her full name like it's royalty. She's 3 years younger, impossibly charming, and knows exactly how to turn a room's attention toward her like she was born under a theater marquee. Growing up, it wasn't obvious. My parents never said she was the favorite, but you don't need words when you have patterns. The way Mom's voice would pitch higher when Penny entered a room. How Dad would suddenly check out of my stories the second Penny coughed, yawned, or blinked. I used to joke that if I had a heart attack at the dinner table, my dad would ask Penny if she wanted dessert before calling an ambulance. It's not that I'm unsuccessful. I graduated top of my class in architectural preservation, published academic articles that people in my field actually cite, and work with one of the top historic conservation firms in the state. But in my family, my successes have always been treated like post-it notes on the fridge, acknowledged, but replaceable. Last month, Penny earned her master's in art history. My parents rented out the glass pavilion at the Botanical Gardens. A string quartet played Vivaldi while guests sipped champagne from crystal flutes. They flew in her college friends, hired a publicist, and gave her a rare art book set wrapped in velvet. Dad gave a speech so emotional I thought he might actually sob. "You're the heart of this family," he said, raising his glass. "Our brilliant, unstoppable Penny." I stood near the back with a plastic flute of Prosecco, wondering if anyone would notice if I left early. They didn't. When I got my master's 3 years ago, summa cum laude, I might add we went to Olive Garden. Mom gave me a $50 Amazon card and said, "We didn't think you liked a lot of fuss." She always says that. My 30th birthday is next Friday. A milestone. I cleared my schedule, told my boss I'd be offline. Hinted like crazy. I left a vacation brochure for Napa Valley on the kitchen counter during Sunday dinner, even told Mom directly I'm taking Friday off for my birthday. Might be nice to do something together. She nodded absently. We'll see what everyone's up to. By Thursday night, I still hadn't heard anything. I stared at my phone until 10:43 p.m. That's when it buzzed. A text from Mom. If you're free tomorrow, swing by the house around 6. Nothing fancy, Gio. Nothing fancy. At 6:00 p.m. sharp, I arrived wearing a new shirt I'd splurged on. They were all in the living room, still in pajamas, watching some dating show. The volume was up so loud I flinched when I stepped inside. "Oh hey, Tad," Mom said without pausing the show. "There's cake in the kitchen." The cake was from a grocery store. Sheet cake, blue icing, happy birthday. Thad spelled wrong. Dad muted the TV long enough to hand me a card. A $25 gift card to Best Buy. "We weren't sure what you'd want," he said with a shrug. I stood there, holding the envelope like it was radioactive. Penny didn't even look up from her phone. I remembered her 27th birthday just 2 months earlier, an entire weekend in Napa. Wine tastings, a private photographer, a custom-designed emerald necklace that matched her eyes. Dad toasted her with tears in his eyes. I stared at the misspelled cake, the muted TV, the card in my hand. "Is this it?" I asked. Mom looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is this the celebration for my 30th birthday?" Dad sighed. "Not everyone needs a big production. Tad." Mom frowned. "Penny's more the celebration type. You've always been more practical." "Yeah," Penny chimed in, eyes still on her phone. "Don't be so dramatic. Thad, it's just a birthday." Something inside me snapped. I walked toward the fireplace where every family photo was neatly arranged photos of Penny holding awards. Penny in front of exhibits, Penny's graduation pictures. My hand brushed 3 of the frames. They toppled. One cracked on the hardwood floor. "Oops," I said flatly. "Clumsy me." No one said a word as I walked out. In my car, I sat gripping the wheel, feeling emotions I'd never let myself process: rage, shame, grief, then something sharper. Clarity, miss. I went home, paced my quiet apartment, then opened my laptop. A page I'd bookmarked years ago stared back at me: the Aegean Writers Collective. A month-long retreat on a cliff in Santorini for serious writers. I dreamed of it for years. I checked the availability. A last-minute cancellation. Starts tomorrow. I booked the spot, booked a flight, requested emergency leave from work. No second guessing. That night, I packed like a machine. Clothes, notebooks, laptop, camera. Every item I placed in that suitcase felt like a declaration I am no longer waiting to be invited. Before I slept, I logged into the family cloud album: years of vacations and holidays, where I stood in the background. I deleted every photo with me in it. Let them notice. At dawn, I posted a photo to Instagram: my passport, boarding pass, and retreat confirmation. Sometimes the best gift is the one you give yourself. The moment I boarded the plane, my phone exploded with calls and texts. I powered it off. As the aircraft climbed above the clouds, I felt it: the anchor finally gone, the weight of invisibility unshackled. I wasn't running away. I was walking into my life. Santorini didn't welcome me with fanfare. It didn't need to. The moment I stepped off the ferry, the warm sea breeze hit my face, and I felt something shift like my lungs were fully opening for the first time. I wasn't just in a new place, I was a new person. The retreat villa sat high on the caldera's edge, a whitewashed dream with pale blue shutters and a desk facing the Aegean. My room had a balcony that made me gasp out loud. Below, the sea shimmered like molten glass, and across the bay, black volcanic rocks stood like ancient guards. I didn't unpack immediately. I just stood at the window, letting the light pour over me, the silence washing away months of resentment. That first evening, we gathered for a welcome dinner on the terrace, 13 of us, from 10 different countries, all here to write, no plus ones, no family, just people chasing stories. Our host, Elena, was a former war correspondent turned memoirist. She had a voice like cigarette smoke and eyes that missed nothing. We went around the table introducing ourselves. When it was my turn, I didn't say much. "I'm Tad. I'm here to write something that's only mine." They nodded like they understood. Maybe they did. That night, I powered off my phone and locked it in the room safe. For the next 7 days, I didn't check it once. The retreat's schedule was intense by design. Mornings were for workshops, afternoons for writing, evenings for critique. At first, I hesitated to read anything aloud. Then Elena called on me directly. "Mr. Mercer," she said, arching a brow, "the floor is yours." So I read a short piece I'd drafted that morning. A story about a boy who learns to disappear so well that not even his parents notice when he leaves. When I finished, there was silence. Then Elena nodded. "You're writing from a place most people spend their whole lives avoiding." I didn't know whether to feel proud or exposed. Later, one of the other retreat members, Cass from Montreal, pulled me aside. "Your work hit hard," she said, "made me realize I've been writing around the truth, not into it." I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't used to being seen. The people here didn't know my sister, didn't care who my parents were. They only knew the Tad who showed up for dinner, shared ideas, offered feedback, and laughed loudly during storytelling games. On the 4th day, I wandered into town and met Nikos. He ran a small photography shop near the marina. We started talking about light, how it changes on the island, how it shapes every photograph. "You see like a writer," he said, "with angles." We walked the stone pathways at sunset. His hand brushed mine once, then again, no declarations, no expectations, just shared silence, and it was more than enough. On the 7th night, I cracked. I retrieved my phone from the safe. It buzzed for 3 minutes, straight missed calls, messages, voicemails. I scrolled. "Mom, please call. We're worried sick." "Dad, this is beyond acceptable. You need to come home and explain yourself." Penny, "Wow, so dramatic. Mom's crying every day. Hope your escape is worth it." Even my landlord had texted, "Your mom called about a mental episode. Everything okay?" Mental episode. I sat down, heart racing. A voicemail from Penny played automatically. "Tad, what the hell are you doing? Mom thinks you're suicidal. She called my gallery crying. You scared her. You've always been so selfish. This is just another tantrum." Selfish. Because I finally chose myself. I crafted one text, sent it to all 3 of them. "I'm safe. I'm writing. I need space. Please respect that." Then I silenced my notifications and put the phone back in the safe. The next day, Elena pulled me aside. "I read your piece about the birthday." I winced. "It's brutal and necessary," she said. "There's strength in making the invisible visible." That afternoon, she introduced me to Nico, a friend of hers who ran a literary magazine. He read my piece. This voice, it's unfiltered but sharp. He said, "Let's publish it." I nodded slowly. Yes, let's. For the first time, someone wanted my words for what they were, not as a backdrop to someone else's spotlight. That evening, we had a reading night. Everyone brought a piece of writing that scared them. I read the story about the cracked birthday frame and the moment I decided to leave. When I looked up, people were crying, not pitying tears, resonant ones. Afterward, Cass hugged me tightly. "You put into words what I never could." I sat by the fire that night, journal open, stars overhead, and I wrote a line that hadn't occurred to me before. I wasn't overlooked. I was never on the list. And maybe, finally, I was okay with that. A week later, my Atlantic piece went live. Titled "The Birthday I Didn't Get," it detailed the subtle cruelty of growing up quietly unloved, not in grand, abusive ways, but in a million little omissions. It went viral. Writers shared it, therapists linked to it, strangers messaged me. I thought I was the only one. "You told my story." "Thank you." I cried, then laughed, then cried again. That night, Elena brought a bottle of red wine to my room. To visibility, she toasted. To choosing ourselves, I replied. I woke to a message from my cousin Megan. Just one sentence. "You should see what your mom posted." Clicking the link felt like peeling off a bandage you know will hurt. There it was, my mother's Facebook post, the first in nearly a year. A grainy photo of our family, circa 2004, my face blurred slightly, Penny front and center. "Please keep our son in your thoughts during this difficult time. We're deeply concerned about his emotional well-being. Family is everything." The comments rolled in. "Praying for healing? You're such strong parents. Hope he gets the help he needs." I scrolled faster, my stomach turning. The implication was clear. I'd lost it, gone off the rails. The golden child didn't run away, so I must be broken. Then came Penny's Instagram story. Screenshots of my Atlantic piece, red circled and mocked. When fiction turns to attention-seeking, her caption read, "Slide after slide. Twisted memories, half-truths. That time I stormed out of a Christmas dinner after being publicly compared to Penny's boyfriend. The birthday tantrum when I quietly left after being handed a misspelled cake." Then a photo of my old bedroom, renovated, art everywhere. Finally converted Tad's old room into a studio. It's never felt more inspiring. And there it was, the emerald ring, Grandma's, on Penny's finger. Family heirlooms carry the best creative energy. I felt hollow, airless, as if my history had been gutted and redecorated while I watched from the outside. But I didn't spiral. Not this time. I opened my laptop and began writing. I crafted a calm, factual post, no rage, just truth. In response to recent posts, I want to clarify that I'm not in crisis. I'm in Greece, attending a writing retreat I saved for over a decade. I'm healthy, supported, and writing the best work of my life. Then I shared comparison photos, Penny's lavish parties beside my silent birthdays, her Napa celebration versus my grocery cake, her gallery launch versus my ignored book release. I ended it with this isn't about bitterness, it's about patterns, about silence, about what happens when someone spends 30 years being the supporting character in their own life. The post went viral overnight. Messages flooded in, DMs, emails, comments. This feels like my life too. I cried reading this. You're brave, you're not alone. Even friends of Penny reached out, former classmates, gallery interns, distant cousins, each one validating what I'd long suspected. They saw it too. They'd always seen it. 3 days later, I got a call from Nico, Penny's gallery rep. "I've been reviewing Penny's proposals," he said, voice tight, "artist statements, essays, bio blurbs." I held my breath. "They sound familiar," he continued. "Then I read your Atlantic piece, and everything clicked." He emailed me samples paragraphs I'd written for Penny years ago, exhibition pitches I'd edited, statements I'd crafted while she paced the room, too anxious to write them herself. They weren't just inspired by me. They were me. Lifted, unchanged, mine. I felt sick. And furious, and free. Over the next week, I became a man on a mission. I pulled out old drives, emails, notebooks, compiled every draft, every timestamp, every edit request. I built a case that was impossible to deny. College essays, fellowship applications, even parts of her master's thesis lines I'd written late at night while she cried on the couch, saying, "I just can't find the words." I had found them, for her, again and again. No more. I wrote 3 letters. One to her graduate program, one to the editor of the literary magazine that featured her work, and one to Nico. Calm, professional, documented. Penny called 2 days later. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. "You're destroying everything I've built." "You didn't build it," I said. "I did." "You're jealous. You always have been." "No," I said. "I just got tired of being erased." "You think this makes you look good, ruining your own sister." "This isn't about punishment," I said. "It's about reclaiming what's mine." She hung up. The next morning, my dad called. "You need to stop this. Tad, stop telling the truth. Penny is devastated. This could ruin her future." "What about mine?" I asked. "What about the years I spent invisible?" His silence told me everything. The university launched an inquiry. The magazine pulled her feature. Nico stepped back as her rep. Penny vanished from social media. And I wrote like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. Every word stitched me back together. The Atlantic contacted me again. "Your story struck a nerve." They said, "What else do you have?" I pitched a column, a regular series on invisible wounds, family dynamics, and finding your voice. They approved it. Suddenly, I had a platform. And I used it not to vilify, not to attack, but to illuminate. To say, this is what emotional neglect looks like. This is what favoritism does. This is what it feels like to be the reliable one until you disappear. 3 months passed. The Santorini light shifted softer, warmer. The waves no longer startled me awake at night. They sounded like something familiar now, like breath. I signed a 6-month lease on a studio apartment that overlooked the caldera. White walls, worn wood floors, and a battered table I made into a desk. My calendar was no longer filled with other people's needs. It was mine. So were my words. The Atlantic series launched under the title Echoes in Quiet Rooms. The first piece, When They Only Call You for Emergencies, got 30,000 shares in a week. The comments flooded in. "You wrote my childhood." I didn't know there was language for this. I showed this to my therapist. I wasn't famous, but I was being heard. And more importantly, I was being understood. Penny stayed quiet. Until one December morning, An email arrived. Subject line: I owe you more than an apology. Her message was long, careful, surprisingly self-aware. I've been in therapy for 2 months. I'm learning about golden children, about what I was asked to be, and what I made you into. I'm sorry for using your words literally and emotionally. You always made things seem easy. I never knew how to ask for help without stealing it. She didn't beg forgiveness. She didn't justify. She just took responsibility. And that meant everything. Our first call was short. No accusations, with it is no tears. Just two adults navigating decades of unspoken truths. I want to return Grandma's ring, she said. It should have been yours. Weeks later, a package arrived. Inside the velvet box, the emerald shimmered against navy satin. A handwritten note beneath it. This belongs with the one who always saw beauty even when no one else looked. I didn't cry. But I felt something let go in my chest. A knot unspooled. My parents were harder. They clung to their narrative for months. You always misunderstood, my mother said in a voicemail. We loved you equally, just differently. But then something shifted. A quiet email from my dad. We're seeing a family counselor. It's hard, but overdue. I don't know how to fix what we broke, but I want to try. That was all he said. It was enough to keep the door open. Not wide, but open. In the spring, my literary agent called. She'd sold my memoir. Invisible No More Family, Silence, and Finding My Voice. 2-book deal, strong advance, a publisher that understood the tone I was after: truthful, unsentimental, and hopeful. I walked the path down to the sea that evening, let the salt air sting my skin and the sun press against my eyelids. I whispered, I did it, to no one in particular. But it felt like the island heard me. For my 31st birthday, Sophia arranged a dinner at the tavern down the hill. Friends from the retreat returned. Elena flew in, bringing a first edition of Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. Nico toasted with ouzo. Cass read a new poem she'd written for me. I laughed more in those 2 hours than I had in most years combined. And when they surprised me with a cake that read, "To Tad, author of his own story," I realized something beautiful. They knew who I was. Not because they were family, but because I'd let myself be seen. I didn't move back to the U.S. Not because I hated my past, but because I finally loved my present. I still spoke to Penny. Sometimes, she enrolled in a creative writing course and sent me her drafts not for editing, but for honest feedback. She was finding her own voice. It was shaky, unpolished, but it was hers. And that mattered more than anything else. I eventually visited home, stayed in a hotel, kept boundaries. We had dinner. No one mentioned the articles or the memoir. But my dad asked to read a draft. And my mom remembered my coffee order. Small shifts, bench, but real. When I left, my father hugged me for the first time in years. You were never invisible, he said, almost a whisper. I didn't correct him, but I did hold his hand a second longer before letting go. My book came out the following fall. Reviews were kind. Some called it brave. Others called it painful and necessary. But my favorite review came from a reader's email. You helped me understand my brother and myself. We're talking again. Thank you. That's why I wrote it. Not for revenge, but for recognition, so someone else could read it and say, this is the thing I've never had the words for. I sit now on my Santorini balcony, the manuscript of my next book beside me. It's not about my family this time. It's about the sea and belonging and how we carry homes within us. The wind lifts a page. I press it down gently. Below, the waves roll in like a memory. I'm no longer angry. No longer aching for applause from people who never clapped. I've found a life not built from their silence, but from my sound. And every word I write from here, it's mine. Fully. Finally, Story 3. The crystal glasses chimed as my sister, Marin, raised her champagne flute, her diamond tennis bracelet. Dad's Christmas gift sparkled under the chandelier. She commanded attention like a trained actress. Our extended family sat around my childhood home's dark oak table, the house I'd been quietly helping pay for. Ever since Dad's engineering firm failed a decade ago, I'd covered the mortgage, the utilities, even their resort vacations, all while chasing my dream. I have some news, Marin announced, her tone glossy and rehearsed. Leo and I are getting married in Santorini this spring. She paused, scanning our faces until her eyes landed on me. Then she turned away. But, she continued, forcing a sunny note, Thorne won't be invited. We want a peaceful, positive vibe. And lately, you've been so negative about logistics and expenses. Silence followed. 14 pairs of eyes slid between us. My mother sipped her wine with a bored air. Cousin Josh fiddled with his napkin. Dad just cleared his throat, offering no defense on my behalf. I set down my fork, wiped my mouth, and offered a slow, cool smile, not the grateful smile I'd worn while wiring her venue deposit. If I'm not invited, I said, voice firm though my heart thundered, then neither is my money. Effective immediately, all financial support is withdrawn. A hush. Her perfect face froze. I stood, laid my napkin beside the half-eaten salmon, and walked away as her protests fluttered behind me. I didn't look back. My life until then. I was 29, steady, dependable, the responsible sibling, the silent financier. Mom and Dad's business collapsed when I was 19. I just landed my first corporate role with a modest salary. Still living in their basement, they sat at the table, foreclosure papers between them, and Dad said, "We're losing everything." That night, I handed them my savings. My dream MBA deferred, my Europe trip canceled. While I lived off cereal, Marin posted sunset pics from Barcelona, financed by me. I paid $1,500 monthly rent for their home, funded medical workups, and sent college aid to Marin, who spent it on branding her influencer image. She basked in attention. I took the bills. Every spring, she got wine country birthdays. I got $25 Best Buy cards. Some brother I was. The morning after that dinner, I lay awake. I stared at my aging checkbook and calendar reminders, rent, mortgage, tithes to their lives. I opened my laptop and bookmarked a writing retreat in Lisbon, something I daydreamed of. One spot opened last-minute cancellation starting in 2 days. No hesitation, I booked a flight, requested unpaid leave, and started packing. That night, I logged into the family account that held 10 years of photos and deleted everyone with me in it. Gone was the silent helper smiling in the background, the sacrifice I'd given piece by piece. At sunrise, I posted a photo of my passport and retreat confirmation. Sometimes the best gift is the one you give yourself. Behind me, marketing emails and calls begged me to confirm my payment enterprise support, scheduling platforms, recurring bills not theirs. At the airport, I switched off notifications and climbed into the plane seat as someone else's safety net began cutting my cords. Santorini welcomed me with cobalt skies and sea spray that tasted like freedom. I stood at the balcony of a whitewashed villa, catching a breeze that whispered, "You're not obligations, you're possible." That evening at dinner, 12 strangers gathered under low lanterns beside the water. No expectations, no backdrop, just honest introductions. I'm Thorn. I'm here to write my own story. No one asked about our family. Everyone asked about mine. Later, I locked my phone in the safe and forgot it existed. The next morning, we began workshops, writing sessions, readings. The second day, Elena, our leader, a memoirist with lines around her eyes, pulled me aside. "Write your truth," she said. "What you've bottled will set you free." That afternoon, I penned a scene from home, my final dinner, my sister's laugh, my anger. That night, I read it. My voice trembled. When I finished, silence fell heavy before Elena said, "You're writing from the shadows. It's time to step into the light." On day 7, I retrieved my phone. Messages flooded in, pleas from mom, scolding from dad, accusations from Marin. I typed one simple reply. "I'm safe, I'm writing, I'm not disappearing, but I need space. Please respect that." Then I powered it off. That night, we read under lanterns by the shore. I shared the scene where I walked away. There were tears, not pity, but recognition. Someone said, "This is the story we needed to hear." I realized this isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. It's about writing the lines I've lived, loud and clear. The 8th morning in Santorini, I woke before the sunrise. The sea outside my window was still, like it was holding its breath. I poured myself a black coffee and opened my laptop. I didn't plan to check emails. I just wanted to write. But a new message caught my eye. Subject feature opportunity, The Atlantic. I froze. My retreat piece, the one I read under lanterns, had been forwarded by Elena to her editor friend in New York. "This voice is powerful." The email read, "Raw, honest. Can we discuss a feature?" My hands trembled. I wasn't ready. I hadn't even edited it. But I typed back, "Yes, I'm available tomorrow. Thank you." And just like that, everything shifted. That afternoon, I sat by the pool and began combing through old files, drafts I'd written, emails I'd saved, calendars I'd kept. I wanted to build something solid from all the pieces of myself I'd sacrificed. That's when I found the spreadsheet. It was buried in a folder titled "Just in Case." 10 years of financial support, itemized. Marin's college tuition, $84,000. Dad's business recovery loan, $51,000. Mom's kitchen reno, $32,500. And the Bali wedding, I'd already paid over $140,000. The photographer, the first-class flights, the venue, all under my name. I stared at the total, $391,400. Enough for a down payment on a beach house, enough to fund 3 startups, enough to have lived 2 lives. I closed the file. And for the first time, I cried. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. I'd left it on for a single hour. One text from Mom. Marin's panicking. "Please call her. She needs the funds for the dress fitting." The audacity, the irony. I replied with one word, "No." Then I opened a new document and began drafting a letter. Not a letter, really a ledger, a formal report, with screenshots, bank records, Venmo transactions. Each entry told a story. The time I sent money for Marin's emergency rent, only to see her sipping champagne at a rooftop bar in New York the next day. The family trip they planned without me, booked using my credit card. Even her laptop, she claimed it broke before finals. I replaced it. Later, I learned it was a gift for her boyfriend. I wasn't just a safety net. I was a walking ATM, one who never said no. Until now. The Atlantic editor called the next morning. Your piece reads like truth most people are afraid to tell, she said. We talked for 40 minutes. When we hung up, I knew I was finally ready to publish. Not out of vengeance, but to put a mirror to what happens when love becomes a transaction. A week later, my story went live. The invisible sponsor, loving a family that sees you only as a wallet. The reaction was immediate, viral. Thousands of comments, shares, messages. This was my childhood. I didn't know it was okay to say no. You've given words to the guilt I carry every day. My inbox overflowed with interviews, podcast invitations, even a request to speak at a family therapy conference. And then, of course, the call started. Marin's voice was high-pitched when she called. You published a hit piece about me, Thorne. Are you serious? It's not about you, I said calmly. It's about me, my experience. You made me look like a monster. You used me like a piggy bank. Silence. Then I was trying to build something. You never believed in me. I laughed. For the first time, without bitterness. I paid for the dream. You just lived in it. 2 nights later, Dad emailed. Short, clipped. What you've done is humiliating. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Take it down. I replied. When you stop pretending nothing happened, we can talk. Days passed. The public support didn't slow down. I posted another piece, Debt, Duty, and the Cost of Being the Good One. It got even more attention. Then something unexpected happened. An art gallery in Portland reached out. Your work made us question our next exhibit. Would you consider writing the intro essay? I said yes, A professor from a university in Chicago wanted to use my story in her psychology course. Another yes. A reader from Lisbon, Miguel, sent a message that made me stop. I thought I was broken for cutting off my family. You helped me see I was healing. That one stayed with me. Then came the final piece of the puzzle. A notification from my credit card company, a suspicious transaction flagged in my name. A hotel in Napa Valley, a luxury spa. Marin. She'd never deleted my card info. She was still using it. I called the company, filed the fraud report, and canceled the card. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the insult, the assumption that I would never notice, never act, never say no. But I had, and I would keep doing it. When I told Elena, she smiled gently. You're not angry, she said. You're becoming free. Back at the retreat, we gathered for one final reading. I stood at the cliff's edge, the sea behind me, and read my new piece. Some families will only love the version of you that bleeds for them. The second you stop, you're no longer useful. But the truth is, if they needed your suffering to love you, it was never love, it was leverage. When I finished, no one clapped. They stood in silence. Then one voice, Elena, said, You wrote it out of your body, and now it belongs to the world. I thought the worst was over. I thought publishing the essay, cutting the financial ties, and reclaiming my voice had been the peak. I was wrong. 10 days after the Atlantic piece went live, I received an email from a woman named Lindsay Rosen, a lawyer. Subject: formal notice of defamation inquiry. It took me a moment to process the words. Marin was threatening to sue. I blinked at the screen. Of all the possible reactions, this wasn't one I had anticipated. The message was couched in legal politeness, but the core was clear. Our client believes your recent publications have caused significant reputational harm, resulting in professional and personal distress. We are exploring options for resolution, including a potential retraction and apology. They wanted silence. I stared at the cursor blinking on my reply window. Then I laughed. It was a bitter, disbelieving sound. The gall. I'd financed her education, her life, her wedding, and now, apparently, her legal threats. I forwarded the email to a friend of mine, Stella, who had just made partner at a mid-sized law firm. She called back within the hour. "They're bluffing," she said. "No lawsuit, no case. You didn't name anyone. You didn't lie." "I want to respond publicly," I said, "but I don't want it to be petty." She chuckled, "Then let it be powerful." That night, I wrote another piece. Short, simple, sharp. When the truth becomes a threat, ask why it's dangerous. I didn't name names, again. But the message landed. The lawyer never followed up. Instead, the mask began to crumble. 3 days later, I received a call from Aunt Josie Dad's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years. She didn't say hello. She just said, "I read everything, and I need you to see something." We met at a diner on the edge of the city. She wore a heavy trench coat and sunglasses, as if expecting spies. From her bag, she pulled out a thick envelope and slid it across the table. "Your father," she said, "never lost the business. He funneled it into a trust, in Marin's name." My coffee stopped halfway to my lips. What? He didn't want creditors getting to it after the lawsuit, so he moved everything. You weren't supposed to know. The envelope was filled with copies of trust documents, tax filings, and payout summaries. For 8 years, the business had been running quietly, legally in Marin's name, practically under Dad's control. They used my money while hiding theirs. I felt sick. The bankruptcy that broke our family. A performance. The calls for help. A script. My sacrifices. Unnecessary. You deserve to know, Josie said. I tried to talk to him about it years ago. That's why we stopped talking. I nodded numbly, gripping the folder like it might disappear. Back at my villa, I sat on the cool tile floor and lined up the documents. 8 years of lies. Of manipulation. And the kicker, Marin had been drawing a 6-figure salary the whole time. I'd paid for her wedding, while she quietly bought a second condo under an LLC. I wasn't just exploited. I'd been deceived from the very start. Elena noticed something was wrong that night at dinner. "You're too quiet," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. I told her everything. When I finished, she leaned forward. "What will you do?" I looked at my hands, remembering the weight of every dollar, every loan, every yes. "I'll show them the truth, on my terms." The next morning, I booked a conference room at a boutique hotel in Boston Neutral. Upscale. Impossible to ignore. I sent out a single invitation to my parents and Marin. Subject: family business. One last meeting. To my surprise, they agreed. The room was all clean lines and crystal glasses. My laptop was already connected to the projector. They arrived together. Marin looked tired, paler than usual. Mom wore a tight smile. Dad didn't look at me. We exchanged stiff hellos and sat. "I'm not here to fight," I began. "I just want you to see what I've discovered." I clicked the first slide. Trust transfer documents, dated, signed. Marin's name circled in red. Then came the payouts, the secret LLC, the condo. My voice didn't shake. When I finished, I said simply, "Why didn't you just tell me?" Dad finally looked up. "We thought we were protecting you." I laughed. It came out harsh and hollow. "You were protecting yourselves." Marin's hands trembled in her lap. "I didn't want it this way," she said, "but once I was in it, it felt too late to stop." "You let me pay for your life," I said, "knowing you had your own." She didn't deny it. I was scared to lose the money and the approval. My mother reached across the table, touching my wrist. "We failed you." That was all she said. No excuses, no justifications. Just those 4 words. For the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. I took a breath. "I'm not pressing charges," I said, "but I've contacted my attorneys. The trust will be dissolved. The funds returned. I'm reclaiming my share." No one protested. They knew they'd lost the moral ground. When I stood to leave, Dad asked, "Where do we go from here?" I paused at the door. You rebuild trust like anything else, brick by brick, but only if both sides are willing to pick up the mortar. And then I left. Not angry. Just free. The next day, a wire transfer arrived $160,000. The first installment? No message attached. Just the numbers. Like it had always been, spring in Lisbon arrived like a sigh. Warm breezes through narrow cobbled streets, orange blossoms drifting from tiled balconies. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't waking up to a full inbox, a new crisis, or someone else's emergency disguised as mine. I was just breathing. It had been 3 months since the meeting in Boston, 3 months since I laid it all bare. Since then, Marin's payments had continued monthly, mechanical, like clockwork. But it wasn't the money that changed things. It was the quiet. No texts begging for help. No calls playing guilt like a violin. No unexpected charges on my credit card. I had, for the first time, uninterrupted peace. My mornings now began with strong coffee and blank pages. I had rented a tiny studio above a bookstore near Bairro Alto. The landlady, Lucia, spoke little English but made the best pastéis de nata in the neighborhood. I wrote essays, fiction, letters I never intended to send, and the memoir, the one I'd never dared begin. Each page came easier than the last. Some stories were hard to write. Like the time Marin locked herself in the bathroom before prom and I'd driven across town to pick up a specific shade of lipstick she needed, missing my own date's dinner in the process. Or the night I canceled a trip with someone I loved because Dad hinted at needing help with the mortgage. Or the dozens of birthdays where the cake had Marin's name, but I paid the bill. None of it made it into the final chapters, but writing them was how I healed. Then there were new stories. Anna, the artist who lived downstairs, taught me how to cook calderada. Luis, the poet from Porto, introduced me to wine so rich it made my mouth forget to speak. And Hugo, tall, soft-spoken, a translator who read Pessoa under trees. We met at a reading, shared a bottle of red, then shared our lives for 6 golden weeks. He was gentle with me in ways no one ever had been, never asked about my past unless I brought it up. He was interested in the version of me I was becoming. We lay on rooftops, kissed under streetlights, and once danced barefoot in the rain without music. It wasn't forever, but it was healing. One night, walking home from a late dinner, Hugo asked, "Why did you stay so long with your family? Giving so much?" I thought about it. Because I was scared that if I stopped being useful, I'd stop being loved. He didn't answer, just took my hand. And somehow, that was enough. In July, I flew back to the States for a literary panel in New York. My essay had won a small award, the kind of recognition I'd spent years telling myself I didn't need. Marin was there. She approached me afterward, alone, in a plain gray dress I didn't recognize from any of her curated social media shoots. "You look happier," she said, awkward. "So do you," I replied, and it was true. She handed me a small box. Inside was the sapphire ring from Grandma Lillian, the one she'd kept. "I should have given it back years ago," she said. "Why now?" "Because I finally understand what it means to earn something." We sat outside the venue on a concrete ledge. No yelling, no tears, just two adults trying to undo the story that had been written for them since birth. "I'm in therapy now," she added. "Real therapy." I nodded. "I'm glad." She hesitated. "I know we'll never be close, but I hope we won't be strangers forever." I didn't make promises. But I didn't walk away either. Later, at the reception, my editor introduced me to another writer. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and laughter in her eyes. She shook my hand and said, "I read your essay. I read it out loud to my son. We cried together." That was the moment. Not the award, not the applause. That connection, that confirmation. My story mattered. Not because it hurt, but because it helped someone else feel seen. By fall, I had signed with a publisher. The memoir, now titled The Ledger, was slated for spring release. I returned to Lisbon, then to Italy, then Greece. I didn't have a fixed address, but I wasn't lost. Everywhere I went, I carried only what I needed. One suitcase, one laptop, and one truth. I was no longer living for anyone else's expectations. Christmas that year, I spent in Prague. Snow dusted the old city like powdered sugar. I walked through markets with cinnamon cider in hand, wrote postcards to people I hadn't met yet, and opened a package from my mother. Inside was a photo. Me and Marin, age 6 and 9, covered in flour, baking cookies, laughing. No note, just the photo. I took it as an olive branch. Back in Lisbon, I taught a writing seminar at the university. One of my students, a young man named Raphael, stayed after class one day. He said, "Your story helped me leave a toxic home. I didn't think I was allowed to." I smiled. "You don't need permission," I said, "just courage. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll settle down. Maybe I'll wander forever. But I do know this. The family I thought I needed to keep. It was never mine to lose. I've built something stronger. Out of truth, out of stories, out of freedom. And I will never sell my peace for someone else's comfort again."